Altered State Adventures. The Mutiny of Baator.
Part 9. The finale.
Mighty God.
What the...
Pazrael and Krumpet emerged from the smoky blue portal and found themselves in Kanya, the 8th level of hell. Their cloaks tightened around their bodies. After already enduring the infernal heat of Avernus, they now fought against the blistering cold of this god-forsaken place. Barely able to see through the relentless blizzard, enormous mountains and giant glaciers populated the horizon and seemed to move and transform before them, each shift causing numerous avalanches that could be felt more than heard over the incessant howling winds. Nearby, a river flowed, seemingly unable to be frozen, and a small wooden boat waited by the bank. Suddenly, a protective orb began to form around them, covering a vast area and allowing nothing to penetrate its transparent walls, until, within its completed protection, silence befell them. Now, a smoke began to twirl within the orb, and soon they were confronted with the apparition of the Smoke Man. But this time, the smoke, now filling its outline, transformed into a physical presence. Before them stood a large man, over 9 foot tall, but in human form, his hands held behind his back. This time, there were no greetings. His words no longer whispered or carried on the wind. His voice, much like his physical presence, was now strong and complete.
You have both parts of the tablet.
Yes, we do. Now just who are you?
That is not important right now,
said the man. And for the first time, unwillingly or not, his voice contained demonic undertones.
You must finish your quest and banish the Lord of Evil for good.
He motioned toward the nearby wooden boat.
Follow the river Styx to the 9th level of Baator, and make known your presence to lure Asmodeus. But, and this is very important, you must not be trapped in that lair. You must not be taken to the city, or you will never escape.
Pazrael and Krumpet shared a look of despair as they tried to maintain their composure.
You must continue to the deepest lair.
The man grinned sadistically, a smile that stretched wide across old and cracked cheeks.
Asmodeus is weaker there, and his wounds weep.
Now the man revealed an object from behind his back and reached out his arm.
Use this to eliminate him.
Pazrael accepted the strange crystal shard and studied the object. Needle-like in its appearance, it was extremely lightweight, unfathomably thin and fragile for its size, yet somehow it seemed unbreakable. The man allowed for some time to pass. It amused him how they stared. It amused him how easy it would be to crush these pathetic specimens. But not now, not yet, for he still needed them a while longer.
This shard is imbued with a power from all 8 higher archdevils. Only once all are combined can Asmodeus be forgotten.
You mean you can kill him?
The man could not help but utter a slight chuckle at the dwarf's ignorance.
Fool! Asmodeus cannot be killed. But down there, in his weakened state, it is possible to incapacitate him and trap him down there forever.
Pazrael frowned, aware now that no good would come from any of this. But still, in the farthest reaches of his mind, she was there, praying, hoping to see him again.
But first, you must give me the tablet.
And what about your side of the bargain?
Would you like me to bring back your loved ones now? Of course not. Not here. I will hold my side once you are free and safe.
Well then, we'll give you the tablet off when we're free.
Angered, the man stepped forward, looming over them.
Give them to me.
But Pazrael and Krumpet stood fast, backing away, stepping out of the protective orb. Their senses were immediately pummeled by the overbearing climate. The man simply stared at them, partly baffled and partly admiring their resistance against the elements. Now, visibly angered, the man disappeared. Struggling to hold their footing in the wind and snow, the hunters made their way to the river's edge. The elongated wooden rowboat was stained black, brown, and dark red, a result of its untold years of service in the foul water. Aside from the single lantern on its bow, the boat was empty. The hull was adorned with skulls of varying degrees of degradation. It held no sails, no oars, no means of control. But upon boarding, the boat set off, cast by an unseen force, and began to follow the river down. Krumpet could not help but look over the edge. It was impossible to tell how deep the water was. The surface sludge floated along slowly, but the current below pulled fast at the boat. The water was dark, oily, and foreboding, and popped every now and then with bubbles of putrid stench. Indistinguishable things floated by, each one looking organic in some form. The stagnant size of the river collected lost limbs, torsos, and organs from untold battles. Time seemed to pass peculiarly here. They traversed the river slowly, but the land passed by in double speed. Some strange and supernatural dilation was at work. The river began to fall away as the shiny verge of a waterfall appeared ahead, and panic set in.
Hey, there's a bloody waterfall! Pez!
Yeah, I see it. What do we do?
Shit, man!
What do we do?
The end of the river shifted in a blurred motion of speed and time, and what was once far was now immediately before them.
What the hell? What? Do we jump? Should we jump?
I'm not bloody jumping into that stuff, no way!
I don't think we have a choice now. Hold on to something.
But as the wooden craft slipped off the edge of the waterfall, its trajectory did not seem to change. The river's direction and flow appeared normal, yet they were falling, floating upon liquid air. The world around them turned from an icy cold, bright white to the dark reds of an infernal hell. It was this transformation that informed them that they had now left Kanya. The river opened up wide, placid in its appearance, an unmoving, stagnant cesspit. It was the Forgotten Lake. A mist began to rise from the water, and within that mist, 1,000 tormented souls could be seen, twisted faces warped by fear, torment, and pain, altered by various states of gore and violence. Their whispered screams filled the lake and carried on the blooded water, begging for mercy, begging for release, begging for an end to their existence. Suddenly, they realized they had reached the end of the lake, and now the thick water cascaded down a canyon into a place much deeper, much darker. The transition happened in a blur, like an amnesia patient waking from an insufferably long episode. They arrived in Nessus. The barren, featureless plain of hard stone and sand stretched into the horizon. Vast chasms and colossal ravines ripped and teared through the land in all directions. In the distance, they could see the rising citadel of hell, Marchand. The words of the smoke man haunted them. If they were captured, they would be taken there, and if that happened, they would never leave this place. Nearby, a small group of lesser beasts hunched over their victim, quenching their ravenous thirst with the warm blood of their prey, and greedily devouring its still twitching flesh. Across the land, bodies of all known races, man and beast alike, were strapped to the jagged rock. Spiked poles and splintered, inverted wooden crosses, their bodies flayed, bones broken, and limbs severed. Some ripped in half at the torsos, others penetrated or impaled through multiple body parts with rusted metal and poisoned steel. Their feverishly infected wounds oozed pus and blood that dripped and covered the floor. An eternity of gangrenous rotten tissue and bodily fluids filled the air, with a stench fouler than foul.
Jeez.
Oh, mighty God.
It stinks.
This place, it's
Horrific.
Ahead, 2 minions, river guardians of Nessus, could be seen, toying with a severed limb by a small floodplain.
Look there.
Yep, I see them. I suppose that's our means of attraction.
Yeah. But how?
I have an idea. I'll give them a little warning shot.
Pazrael stood up and made sure he had good footing with the boat's unpredictable motion, and then fired an arrow. The arrow, slightly red, slightly yellow, flew through the air and impaled itself in the side of the nearest devil's head. The beast fell limp to the floor.
What? I thought you were going to do a warning shot, my bro.
Well, you saw the arrow. I guess it was yellow because,
You're scared?
No, more nervous. I told you yellow can be unreliable, didn't I?
The remaining devil roared at the death of its friend and cast an evil glare at the boat and its passengers, and flapping its wings, it rose to a hover. But once more, a protective bubble formed and surrounded the boat. The devil cocked its head in confusion. Angered, it flew away in the direction of the city, undoubtedly to inform of their intrusion.
Well, I guess that should do it, eh?
Yeah. I feel like we've just awoken the dragon.
Another shift occurred, another sickening motion of blurred speed and time, as they passed through a cavernous opening. The walls on either side, a deep dark red. Upon closer inspection, the steaming rock seemed to portray, or even contain, thousands of tormented souls, faces and skulls peering outward, trapped forever in stone. The horror of this place was beyond anything Pazrael or Krumpet could ever have imagined, and yet they had not reached the end of their descent. The river trickled down further and further, snaking round and round until the decrepit wooden boat could no longer traverse its waters, for they had now entered the Serpent's Coil, the deepest part of the Nine Hells, and the final destination on the River of Blood. Slowly, they departed the vessel that had offered them passage through Baator, and tightly they clutched their weapons. The tablet halves vibrated, hummed. Their power had been growing with every passing minute. Pazrael glanced at the crystal shard in his hand, still unaware of its true power, still unsure how to use it against the Lord of Evil. He would not have to wait much longer.
Here, just look at this place,
said Krumpet, circling in awe and terror.
Yeah, I'm trying not to, Krumpet. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever have imagined such a place.
Yeah, I for one cannot wait to get out of here. I can't stand the stench of it.
The pit was a spiraling canyon, cold, hard, desolate. Its formation carved from the impact of Asmodeus falling into hell from the upper realms. The low hum of an eternal wind filled the air. Droplets of unseen water echoed around them and mixed with sporadic crumbling of ancient rubble and stone. Pazrael, struggling to fathom a suitable description for the land they currently occupied, was unaware of the approaching tremor.
I mean, it's...
Hell is not a place for the faint of heart.
Krumpet immediately turned to face the direction of the voice, his axe glowing with intensity. Pazrael placed the crystal shard on the ground and readied an arrow as he studied the entity that floated toward him. The scorched rock walls seemed to tremble with vibrations as the larger-than-life being descended towards his guests. Eventually touching ground, the devil began a slow walk around them, seemingly fearless and in complete disregard for the weapons being pointed at him. Dressed immaculately in a long red and black robe, inlaid with gemstones and with a yellow and black turned-over collar and sleeves, this man, this beast, this devil loomed over them, standing erect and proper at over 13 feet tall. Unintentionally, Krumpet growled.
Now, Krumpet. There really is no need for bad tempers.
Krumpet recoiled, casting a confused look toward Pazrael.
What? How does he?
But Pazrael was silent, stunned, for he was having his own conversation with the devil.
How are you doing this? How are you in my mind?
Telepathy, my dear Pazrael. Tell me, why do you think you are here?
I don't...
What is this? What have you done to him?
The devil turned to Krumpet as he stroked his perfectly kept beard. Soft-spoken, extremely articulate, and outwardly confident, he whispered in Krumpet's native tongue, asking the dwarf for calmness.
Calm yourself, Lanky.
The devil stopped before them and stood perfectly still, calm, collected. His appearance was that of a slim, athletic man. He was captivatingly handsome in his features. Vivid red skin with glowing red eyes that pierced like blades and burned like orbs of liquid fire. Giant horns ruptured from his skull.
I will speak to you both now. Pazrael the Ranger, Stalker of Evil, Punisher of the Damned, and Krumpet van Tonder, the dwarf who seeks vengeance upon the orcs. Quite fortunate that you found each other. and indeed quite a bond that you have formed.
No response came, only mesmerizing stares.
At a loss for words, it seems.
The devil lifted his trusty rod, carved from a single ruby. It glistened with every move as he pointed it toward them.
I see you have some rather dashing cloaks there. Do you think they will help you?
Still the silence continued, as sweat began to pour and grips tightened around weapons.
I wonder if you can tell me why it is that you're here, in my home, without so much a courtesy of letting me know you were coming.
We followed the river. It brought us here.
Yes, the river does tend to flow down here. But that does not answer my question, little friend.
We have something for you. A shard.
Said Pazrael as he returned the arrow to its quiver and retrieved the crystal shard from the ground. Asmodeus lifted his eyebrows as he teased the ranger once more with telepathy.
Do you see your loved one here?
Stop that. Stop doing that.
Huh? What happened? What did he do?
And what, pray tell, do you two plan to do with that crystal shard?
Pazrael and Krumpet cast an eye at each other, neither wanting to tell the truth, both knowing that the devil likely already knew the answer. A foulness began to fill the air. Asmodeus betrayed no signs of the intense pain he was feeling, for underneath his garments, wounds began to seep as they opened up. His clothes began to rip and tear apart. Black blood secreted from multiple lacerations. Krumpet acted on impulse.
He's wounded. He's weakening. Attack!
The dwarf rushed toward the devil, axe lifted high as he jumped and heaved his axe upwards. The devil did not move. His expression barely changed, and his smile did not fade, as he brought the ruby rod crashing down. The impact created a defensive shield around him. Krumpet bounced into the force of the shield's energy, and was sent flying across the pit.
Krumpet!
Pazrael ran at the devil, shard in hand, ready to plunge. Asmodeus gently waved an arm, and spawned a ball of hellfire that burned as it flew over Pazrael's shoulders. The ranger ducked and rolled. In the corner of his eye, he saw his friend returning. Krumpet held his shield in both hands and launched it towards the devil. The shield glittered and sparked with lightning bolts as it pierced the air and flew towards the devil's head. Asmodeus turned, his eyes glowing like fire, yet his expression was one of serene calmness. The shield clashed with a ruby rod in a brilliant display of violent light. But the shield was only a distraction for Krumpet to gain some ground. The dwarf spun at dizzying speed and unleashed his axe with a furious throw. Asmodeus sidestepped, but as his robe followed, the axe caught it and ripped the cloth in two, before finally embedding into the rock. Again, Asmodeus waved his arm, and again, Krumpet was sent flying to the ground. While distracted, Pazrael had circled the devil, and leaping into the air, he attempted to bring the crystal shard down into the devil's back. Another shield of energy emerged from the ruby rod, and Pazrael stumbled backwards, dropping the shard with a clatter that echoed throughout the pit. Asmodeus launched another fireball, and this time it would not miss. Pazrael lifted his cloak to cover his body, and the fireball dissipated upon impact. Now the Lord spoke, his voice and tone unaltered. Still, he seemed charismatic, polite, almost compassionate.
You must excuse my previous benevolence. Please do not mistake it for any form of compassion.
The hunters picked themselves up while the devil continued.
Your cloaks are serving you well. I imagine without them, you would be dead already. But then, without them, you would not even be here.
Pazrael and Krumpet took a moment to regain their breath, regain their strength, for each single blow from the devil felt like 1,000. Crippling, breathtaking, immobilizing.
I sense your weapons have been altered too. Holy weapons have their uses against my minions. I'm intrigued. So I must ask, do you think that they will help you down here, in the darkest depths of hell, against me?
Krumpet, activating his inner powers, rushed again toward the devil with incredible speed. Gathering his shield from the ground and his axe from the rock wall, he turned to face Asmodeus. A fireball sped toward him that he deflected with incredible effort, his shield deflecting the blow. And now, the familiar, brilliant flashes of light flew in all directions as the fire impacted steel. Krumpet's armor began to glow. The Stormlord was with him now, and the fire would not stop him. He rolled to his side once, twice. With every maneuver, he gained ground, until finally he was within reach. His axe swung and arced through the air with blurring speed, lashing at the devil's robe, but never carving flesh. Pazrael reached for an arrow and fired at the devil's head. The yellow arrow missed. He fired another and then another. Each was swatted from the air or blocked by some unseen energy. Asmodeus, comfortably dealing with Krumpet's frenzy, turned his head towards Pazrael. The devil's eyes, once glowing with fire, now turned the deepest black. A darkness of such intensity that its magnitude could fill any void. Its vacuum would bleed the life from an entire cosmos. Pazrael caught sight of him, and instantly his mind began to feel the intense pressure of 1,000 voices. For the devil had uttered a dark speech so awful that Pazrael's eyes began to bleed. His bow useless, his aim compromised, Pazrael mustered all the strength he could to run and join the fight with his friend. He wiped the blood away, and somehow he managed to compose himself. Holding the shard like a spear, he ran toward the devil. Now, Asmodeus fought both man and dwarf, parrying every strike, sidestepping every stab, and blocking every blow. Eventually, he became bored and unleashed a bolt of energy that sent the two hunters to the ground once more. But Krumpet would not go down so easily. The dwarf retrieved his axe and shield, and once again launched into a furious attack, fueled by Kord himself. Pazrael had not been so lucky, as he found himself dodging another spawn of hellfire, this one colliding with his shoulder. The fire erupted around him, catching the tail of his bandana and setting it on fire. He quickly removed the blue satin from his head and watched in despair as it turned to ashen embers in his hands. Emotions boiled over inside him as he watched one of the last remnants of his wife burn in front of him while the devil's laughter filled his mind. He lay motionless, distraught, overcome with sadness and loss. Krumpet's persistence finally delivered him blood as a swing from his axe caught the devil's leg. Asmodeus, now showing the slightest signs of anger, smashed Krumpet's axe and shield away, dropped his ruby rod to the ground, and picked the dwarf up by his neck. Krumpet's legs swayed in the air as he rose towards the devil's head, struggling for grip, struggling for breath. Asmodeus pummeled him with blow after blow after blow. Blood flowed freely from Krumpet's face. The dwarf fought back with every last bit of strength he could muster, but his body was becoming limp with every torturous strike. Pazrael rolled onto his side. Consumed with despair, futility began to set in. Through the blood that poured from his eyes, he could briefly make out his friend being beaten to a pulp. He tried to find his feet, try to save his friend, but his mental state was compromised, his sight almost blinded. He reached out for balance, but what he found was the crystal shard that lay on the ground beside him. There was only one thing he could do, one more thing he could try. Krumpet still received blow after sickening blow as he began to lose consciousness. Pazrael reached for the shard. It was so thin and immaculately smooth. It was like an arrow. He placed it within his bow and pulled it back, but the blood over his eyes offered no clear shot. He could only see red, only see his friend being beaten, only see the end of both of them through blurred eyes.
Help me, my love. Help me.
He whispered as he closed his eyes. Somehow he could feel her. He could sense her. The vision came to him so clear, so visceral, and so too did his aim. With eyes closed and a calmness within his heart, he fired. The shard flew with such accuracy and precision that the devil could only turn and watch as the crystal penetrated his ribcage and embedded itself deep within the devil's chest. Asmodeus dropped Krumpet to the ground as he too fell to his knees. In a brief moment of relative peace, man, dwarf, and devil remained motionless. And then the smoke appeared. This time, the man that formed was solid, real. He stepped out of the portal and onto the trembling ground. His voice differed as it took on its primal form, and he referenced the devil in the infernal language.
What's the matter, Asmodee? Feeling a little poorly?
Asmodeus looked up at the man as he rose to his feet and pulled a crystal shard from his body with a sickening spluttering of black blood. The wound would not heal. Not here. His wounds remained forever fresh down here. His skin, still blighted by wounds dating back to his fall from grace over a millennia ago, his body littered with bleeding injuries. While he was now, and indeed is forever, in excruciating pain, he somehow managed to portray the appearance of someone unconcerned by such torment. But his new injury felt different. The shard had unleashed a special venom into his body.
Ah, Mephisto.
Yes, Asmodeus. It is I.
While the devils were distracted, Pazrael rushed over to Krumpet and pulled him away from the towering beasts.
Krumpet, are you okay, friend?
Krumpet could only gurgle a response. Together, they watched as the Smoke Man transformed into his true self. The devil, Mephistopheles, a creature very similar in stature, yet far more barbaric than Asmodeus. A huge, diabolical hulk of muscle with fiendish claws, his monstrous wings equally as savage-looking as his horns. And although they had suspected all along that they were being misled, it was the final blow for them both that they had been fooled, lied to, tricked into doing the devil's work. Mephistopheles would not bring back their dead, not bring back their loved ones, and now, to add salt to their wounds, they were stuck in the darkest depths of hell. Asmodeus breathed heavily now.
How befitting of you to betray your lord.
Not just I, Asmodeus.
Then you shall all pay. What I do is in the interest of...
What you do is and always has been in the interest of yourself.
Mephistopheles approached the Lord of Evil.
With all your strength, all your power, you could have it all. But strangely, you are weak, Asmodeus. You plan so much, and yet you do not seem to do anything. You're too hesitant, too caught up in the details. Not enough action. Don't you see? You undertake such lengthy and complex plans, often requiring hundreds or thousands of years, centuries if not millennia, to see any form of fruition. And all for your own goals. We cannot wait that long, Asmodeus. You manipulate our forces and maneuver your pawns like chess pieces in your grand infernal board. Slowly and ever so subtly, you manipulated us all.
Asmodeus regarded his fellow devil with indifference. Anger, frustration, and betrayal would clearly be bubbling up inside him, but his exterior portrayed a Zen-like mindfulness. Mephistopheles chuckled to himself.
You once walked into Mount Celestia and survived using only your words and your wits. I would have taken it with brute force and bloodshed. And now, I can take over, backed by my lower brothers, and we can dominate the mortal realms and rule under lawful evil.
Mephistopheles reached out an arm towards Pazrael and Krumpet. The tablet halves activated and tugged, eventually releasing themselves from the satchels and containers that had held them prisoner. The hunters were helpless against the wielded force of the devil's power. Now, clutching both halves in his hands, Mephistopheles connected them, unifying the tablet after millennia, and a shockwave of energy ruptured from the core and filled the pit. The tablet began to excrete a smoky substance that whispered a recital in the infernal language.
Once combined, The tablet instructs the recital that can be used to summon a portal to the mortal realms, Asmodeus,
said Mephistopheles. He turned to face the two injured hunters.
A devil cannot simply wander the mortal planes and retrieve it. I needed someone to bring it to me. And I also needed the blood of a pure soul to awaken it.
Slowly, but with increasing vigor, Asmodeus began to laugh.
You fool! You know that no devil can port out of this place.
Mephistopheles simply smiled as he began to recite his own spell, a dark magic that cast out from within him and slithered across the ground. As he did so, it began to collect the spilled blood from Pazrael and Krumpet that had been shed from their battle with Asmodeus. The blood lifted and swirled in the air, and then was pulled in and consumed by the tablet. And with this, a light was projected, and a portal opened before them. Seeing this, Asmodeus finally dropped his mask, anger and hatred beginning to boil over. And although partially paralyzed, he began to transform into his true self, a huge, snake-like creature. His body broke and ruptured as the skin stretched and his features deformed. Soon, a massive, wingless, and scaled serpent, hundreds of miles long, would appear. It was an image that most could not manage, a sight that was unseeable. Almost none have ever witnessed this form, and those that did would surely die. Mephistopheles could not let the transformation take place. He needed to end this now. The crystal shard needed to penetrate deep. The venom had not yet properly immobilized Asmodeus. It needed more time. It needed a deeper wound. He ran towards Asmodeus and knocked the devil backwards while he grabbed the shard from his hand. Asmodeus tried to summon his ruby rod, but Mephistopheles intercepted and swatted it from the air. Now, the two devils raged upon each other. Sickening blows were delivered to flesh as fierce talons ripped the skin and carved into bone. Sickening black blood flew in all directions. Explosions of magic echoed across the pit, and brilliant flashes of light were cast out into the air. The two devils engaged ferociously in violent combat, as Asmodeus continued to morph into something else. Beaten, dazed and bloodied, Pazrael and Krumpet were dazzled by the display of violence before them. But Pazrael, seeing their chance for freedom, wasted no time.
Quickly, Krumpet!
He said painfully, rising to his feet and helping the fallen dwarf to his.
We must reach the portal.
Krumpet summoned every last ounce of his strength to move his broken body, slowly, painfully, toward freedom.
Come on, Krumpet.
Neither of them looked back. They had seen enough. Still, anxiety filled their hearts as they approached the portal. The things they had seen here, the things they had experienced here, haunted their mind and would do so forevermore. Eventually, as the battle raged behind them, they reached the portal. A clash of crystal upon stone sounded as once again the shard had been flung from combat and landed beside them. Krumpet reached for it and handed it to Pazrael.
You must close the portal.
Pazrael nodded.
Can you stand?
Yeah, my bro, I can.
Carefully, Pazrael released his grip on Krumpet and placed the shard within his bow.
Then ready yourself, Krumpet. We only have one chance at this.
I was born ready.
Pazrael stood, searching the pit for the stone tablet, and upon finding it, he locked on with the focus of 1,000 rangers. His ancestors shining through with an aim so true, it became his only vision. He lifted the bow and pulled back the string.
Now, Krumpet!
And as the two hunters fell backwards through the portal, Pazrael released the shard. It flew through the air as together the hunters disappeared and the projectile hit its target, shattering the stone tablet into pieces, and with it, the portal closed. Pazrael and Krumpet arrived with a thud, back in the mortal plane, turning in time to see the portal exit close. For some time, they simply lay where they fell. The sound of a nearby river, coupled with a plethora of bird call, relaxed them. They were not home. They never would be again. But for now, they were safe. Krumpet fought the urge to fall asleep as his body began to shut down. He needed to recover. He needed a long rest.
You did it, Paz.
We did it, Crumbs.
Well, I guess I did kind of take the brunt of it back there, eh?
A moment of silence befell them as Krumpet inspected his wounds, and Pazrael brushed his fingers through his now exposed hair. His bandana was gone forever, but his memories of her remained.
It was all for nothing. We achieved nothing. Our loved ones are still gone.
Krumpet stirred as he turned to face his friend.
Nah, bro. We destroyed the tablet. We prevented the hells from spilling out into the mortal plane. We foiled their plans.
Yeah, I guess we did, didn't we? You're right, Krumpet.
It might not seem like it to us, but at least we caused some disturbance down there, eh? I'll be busy fighting it out for a while.
I bet they will, Krumpet. I bet they will.
Krumpet looked around at the creek. A forest of bamboo lay beyond it.
Where are we?
I don't know. But if it's okay with you, I think I might just have a little sleep before our next adventure. Agreed?
Yeah. Agreed, my bro.
As the hunters lay back in the long grass, they slowly drifted away. And as they did so, unbeknown to them, a strange, distant, almost inaudible laughter could be heard.
Two adventurers with a destiny. Their blades are sharp, their aim is true. Facing danger, not a good for you. Altered state adventures. 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 Altered state adventures.
Hi everybody, it's Paul Hutchings here. Thanks for listening to this episode, and if you made it this far, then we really hope you enjoyed this story as much as we did making it for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe as we have plenty more stuff coming, and also, why not tell a friend and get them to tell their friends, and we'll hopefully see you all for the next adventure.